Okay guys, it's another video. This one is going to be about scatter diagrams, regression lines, correlation, causation, interpolation and extrapolation, which is quite a mouthful. We'll go through it step by step. First of all, scatter diagrams are the same scatter diagrams that you know and love from GCSE. It's two variables, and you see whether these things are correlated, either they're positively correlated or negatively correlated, or quite frankly not correlated at all. You have to generally describe them, how strong the correlation is, either strong or weak, depending on how close of a pattern, or how close of a line it follows. Now, speaking of the idea of the line, that's one thing that's changed from GCSE to A-level. In the past, you just did a line of best fit, go through as many points as you can, roughly equal number of points, you know how this all works, so far so good. At A-level, it's a bit weird, because they use something that's actually more complex, called a regression line, but they don't actually ask you to do what the calculation to work out the regression line, they just give you the regression line. So there won't be any more drawing a line of best fit, they will give you the equation of the line, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Before we go into that, there's one key thing that they really do want you to know, and this idea that correlation does not imply causation. So two things can be correlated without one causing the other one. I'll give you an example. The example I always tend to give people is like, over the last 500 years the number of pirates has fallen. In the same time, the temperature of seawater has increased thanks to global warming, right? So there's a negative correlation there. But it isn't because there's more sunshine out that there's less pirates, it just happens to be that they've both happened at the same time. So correlation does not necessarily imply causation. If you want to say that one causes the other, you need to give a reason why. You need to tell us, okay, what's the path of logic that says changing one variable will change the other. I'm sure you know all the stuff about positive and negative correlation. If it's going up, it's positive. If they're going down, it's negative, and all the rest of it. Okay. Going back to this idea of the regression lines, they'll give you an equation of the line of best fit that they've drawn for you. And they'll ask you to do one of two things with them, either interpolate or extrapolate. First of all, what do we mean by interpolate and extrapolate? If you're interpolating or extrapolating, they're basically going to ask you, they're going to give you one of the two variables, either x or y, and you substitute into the equation that they give you, and you use it to calculate the other one. If you do that for data for a data point that's inside of the range of the data you've got. So for example, if you've got scatter points from say 0 to 10 and they ask you to substitute in 5, that would be interpolation. That's generally considered reliable. Extrapolations would now ask you to take a value that's outside of the range of data of your scatter diagram or the data you've been given. So suppose your scatter points go from, say, on the x values from 0 to 10 again, and they ask you to substitute in 20. That's considered not as reliable, for one reason, that you don't know that the regression line trend, or the line that you've got, represents what happens outside of the information that you have. So if you're extrapolating, if you're substituting a number outside of the range of information that you've got, then that's extrapolation and it's considered not as reliable. Let's try and illustrate that now by just looking here. Imagine that you had to find basically what you thought, if this is say 5, you go across and you go up, and you'd find out what the x value is. That's what you do at GCSE. At A-level, you'd substitute the number in, and that would be interpolation. If your value here, your biggest value here is 12, and then they ask you to tell, okay, what happens when it's 20? That's extrapolation, okay? So I hope that made that a little bit clearer, and if you're confused by that, please don't hesitate to drop a comment also.